Should Kashmir have been taken to the United Nations, the issue of Jammu and Kashmir? And that's a huge debate in our country, then and even now. Both father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, and Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, the Iron Man of India, then Home Minister and Deputy Prime Minister of India, they were both against it. In fact, Mahatma Gandhi, he said, I shall advise India and Pakistan to sit together. He was against taking it to the United Nations. Decide the matter amongst ourselves is what Mahatma Gandhi believed. If two are interested in settlement of dispute, it has to be done by themselves. Do not take it internationally. Where is the need for an arbitrator? This was Mahatma Gandhi's point of view. Sardar Patel was against taking it to the UN in the first place. He said, let the armed forces sort it out. Retake Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Is India paying for the mistakes of past governments, and especially Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, not just on Kashmir, but also in the Indus Waters Treaty? On his 61st death anniversary, Pandit Nehru remains in the line of fire. The BJP and the Congress today are at daggers drawn, and joining me on this special broadcast are Dr. Ajay Alok of the BJP, Mohan Kumar Mangalam represents the Congress, Sanjay Jha, formerly with the Congress, joins us as an analyst, and also my privilege to welcome on this special broadcast Ambassador Yash Sinha, our former High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, was earlier Joint Secretary and then Additional Secretary at the Pakistan-Afghanistan-Iran desk, and somebody who's been a part of the team that fought the Indus Waters Treaty case at the arbitration court. Sir, welcome. But Ajay Alok, may I come to you first, because I want you to respond to Congress Party's General Secretary Jairam Ramesh saying, instead of indulging in Nehru bashing on his death anniversary, will the Prime Minister answer why the terrorists responsible for the Pahalgam attack, also linked to earlier strikes, whether in Poonch or Gagangir or Gulmarg, are still at large, and why he remains silent on US President Donald Trump's repeated claims that India was pressured into a ceasefire on the evening of the 10th of May, effectively halting Operation Sindur?
Gaurav, the problem with the Congress lies that they are gradually becoming insane. After so many multiple times of clarifications by the DGMO, by External Affairs Minister, by everyone, that it was only a bilateral talk, there was no third front or there was no third party interference at all. But they failed to believe so. Now they have started raking up where are the terrorists of Gulbarg, where are the terrorists of Pahalgam. They are all meeting their fate, like what we did on 6th night, when more than 100 terrorists met their fate. But the problem with the Congress is that they have to speak in the voice of Pakistanis. Now what Prime Minister did today, he showed the mirror, and a mirror full of facts. The cynical blunders done by the Congress in the past, which led to happen all this. May it be 1947, may it be Kashmir, may it be POK, may it be Aksai Chin, and after that even Indira Gandhi for that matter. Raja Pakhad district taken by in Bangladesh or returned back to Bangladesh. Then Kachativu returned back to Sri Lanka. There are numerous blunders which have been done, and it's there in the historic past. Now, when we show them the mirror that this is all because of this that we are facing all these things, what's wrong in that?
Okay, let me take that to Mohan.
Let me take that. Supposed to know that what blunders we have committed.
Okay. So you made your point, and on multiple issues, Mohan Kumar Mangalam, the Prime Minister said Operation Sindur is the new normal. If there's a terror attack, Pakistan is responsible. There will be consequences and costs for Pakistan. Isn't this the hardest line that's taken on Pakistan terror? And is there merit? You heard Dr. Ajay Alok say that the government's repeatedly clarified that it was the DGMO of Pakistan who sought a ceasefire after the May 10th operation.
Gaurav, I'm sure you've heard the old adage that success has many fathers, but failure is an orphan. Well, the Prime Minister has clearly modified it to being that success has only one father, which is him, and failure has only one, which for him is the first Prime Minister, Mr. Nehru. Now, the PM is touring the countryside claiming sole responsibility for the success of Operation Sindur. And obviously, the opposition's questions about how a terror attack such as Pahalgam could occur at all has been playing on his mind. As recently as July last year, the PM in an address in Rajya Sabha said terrorism in J&K was on its last leg. In September, he followed that up with a rally in Jammu and Kashmir where he said terrorism is breathing its last in Jammu and Kashmir. And here we are, just 9 months later, with one of India's most dastardly terrorist attacks in Jammu and Kashmir a month ago, and the killers are still absconding. Now, clearly, the Prime Minister needs a fall guy. And so he turned once again to his favorite fall guy, the late Prime Minister Nehru, who, because the PM can himself never measure up to his stature, he has to try and knock him down a peg or two to prove that he's tall enough to stand beside him. He's complaining about Mr. Nehru agreeing to a ceasefire back then, but has no words for why he declared a ceasefire now or allowed Mr. Trump to declare a ceasefire first. And it's all well to say the DGMO has responded or the External Affairs Minister has responded. Are these the people who would respond to President Trump, the American president? Has the Indian Prime Minister not the right person to respond to him? Are we taking the President of the United States down a few notches? Isn't this the same man who the Prime Minister went to hammer and tongs campaigning said, "Ab ki baar Trump sarkar"? So this is ludicrous. This man in the last has, I think, 8 or 9 times now come out and said that he's the one who mediated the ceasefire between India and Pakistan. He also went so far as to say that he used trade as an incentive to force India to agree to a ceasefire. If the Prime Minister does not respond to this, with what authority is he going out and claiming that this was something that was done by India alone? And as much as I hate to waste time asking questions of the dead or clarifying the half-truths and lies put out by the Prime Minister and Home Minister, here I am participating in yet another show designed to be a weapon of mass distraction from the questions that actually we should be asking the government today.
Fair enough. Ajay Alok, you want to quickly respond before I bring in Sanjay Jha? The clarification that Mohan Kumar Mangalam seeks on that aspect of Trump saying he used trade as a stick, if I may, to beat India with for a ceasefire.
I would really appreciate if my Congress friend would have done his homework properly. Because it is the same Mr. Donald Trump who has changed his statement 4 times, but he still chose to believe Trump. That's his prerogative altogether. Let me tell you very clearly, we had 2 BJP Prime Ministers, one Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee and second Mr. Narendra Modi. And none of them are in awe with the American president like what your Prime Minister used to be in. If you don't believe me, go and read Narasimha Rao Book's autobiography when he says during Kuwait War that I am not worried now since George Bush is behind my back. So you used to keep your Prime Minister chair with the blessings of American president, not the BJP. Here was Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee who clearly said to Mr. Clinton during Kargil War that if we are being attacked, we are going to just decimate Pakistan. The Pakistan won't be on the map. And here is Mr. Narendra Modi, whom so-called your Trump has often said that he's a very tough negotiator. He doesn't listen to anyone.
Now he's our Trump.
So stop going all this crap. When we have said clearly, government has said clearly, there's only bilateral talks. And mind you, there is no ceasefire. There is no ceasefire. It's just a temporary submission. There is no ceasefire. I'm again telling you.
Let me get Sanjay Jha into this conversation. Sanjay Jha, the Prime Minister made it clear that it was punishment that the Indian armed forces, and the Prime Minister of the country is saying it was punishment that the Indian armed forces gave on the 10th morning, the May 10th morning that forced Pakistan to seek a ceasefire. Is the opposition still not convinced when both the Prime Minister, the Foreign Minister and the DGM at a press conference, they've repeatedly, talked about the circumstances in which Pakistan sought a ceasefire? Is this not the strongest line, if I may, the strongest response to Pakistan's state-sponsored terror since we've been victims of Pak terror?
Gaurav, it's great to be on your program once again. I'll keep my answer very brief and to the point. First and foremost, to my dear friend Ajay Alok. Ajay, you've forgotten that Mr. Modi actually marketed Donald Trump by saying, "Ab ki baar Trump sarkar." Please don't disown him publicly. I think you will actually embarrass
Again,
Mr.
wrong.
Modi himself. Anyway,
Wrong, fact check.
No. Anyway, listen.
Fact check.
Please don't embarrass yourself. It's on public record. It's on videos. Please don't do that, Ajay. I request you to take a deep breath and calm down.
Fact check again.
Yeah,
Okay,
anyway.
after Sanjay Jha finishes this point, Mohan Kumar Mangalam also has his hand up. And okay, go on. Sanjay Jha, please finish your point, sir.
Yeah, Gaurav, very quickly, no matter what the BJP says in its rhetoric, including the Prime Minister, the opposition, including the Congress party, has stood with this government in a difficult period. But it needs to be added, that does not mean that we will ignore the failures of this extremely incompetent government. Let me tell you something, Gaurav. I was there in Pahalgam 3 days before the terror attack happened. And one of the things me and my family witnessed and we found it a little odd because we had been in Srinagar before, that there was a conspicuous absence of any security personnel in that area. The Modi government cannot ignore that reality. I would request the Prime Minister, because I hope he will watch your program later on. If he's not watching it live already, I hope he is. Who is responsible for the intelligence lapse and the security failure in Pahalgam? Why did we lose 27 people to begin with? That is the fundamental seminal issue that has to be addressed. Let me quickly tell you on the Kashmir issue why the Prime Minister is blatantly distorting history. And I'll put it on record. Gaurav, let me tell you, when I'm a student of history and politics, Jammu and Kashmir would not have been part of India at all if Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru had not been there. The instrument of accession was signed on the 26th of October 1947, right? And let's accept the reality. Who was the Prime Minister then? Pandit Nehru. Why did it happen? One of the critical reasons was his equations with Sheikh Abdullah, and the other part was with Lord Mountbatten.
Okay.
It became a precondition because Lord Mountbatten was able to influence Hari Singh, who frankly as the king of Jammu and Kashmir, wanted to be actually independent. So the first thing that the BJP and Mr. Modi
but
need
that
to agree,
situation had changed. If I may, that situation changed when Pakistani raiders and tribals started raping women, including in that convent in Baramulla, and that there was loot ki choot for 3 days between 22nd and 25th, and where we lost, a brigadier of Hari Singh's army at Uri. So that disaster had already taken place. Pakistani raiders had come in. Pandit Nehru, that's exactly why we played out what Sam Manekshaw said. That it was Sardar Patel who said, Jawahar, tumhe Kashmir chahiye, you want Kashmir or not? And that is where the army was sent in. That's also a fact, sir.
Gaurav,
but I want to bring in Ambassador Yash
respect.
Sinha.
No, Gaurav, 1 minute. You haven't let me finish here. You haven't let me finish.
Okay.
Give me 30 seconds.
on,
Gaurav,
sir.
I think your AI is probably a little, Chinese
I'll
influence.
play out Sam Manekshaw's bite for you. I will play out historical records for you.
Let me make my point. My point is,
sir.
are you aware that Pandit Nehru loved Kashmir? He was anyway a Kashmiri. The second point which you are ignoring is that Sardar Patel at that point of time had the larger responsibility of Junagadh. And if you go back into history and don't cherry pick, Sardar Patel was at that point of time more serious about ensuring that the whole issue of the Nizam and Junagadh was sorted and the integration
Both
happened
Hyderabad,
with India.
Junagadh, but
That
when
is the
Pakistan
reality.
played a dirty game, on Junagadh, and
Let's
so
not
that's
cherry-pick
also a
here.
fact. Pakistan played a dirty game on Junagadh. You know that Nizam tried to
Yeah,
seek
but you
out
also know the
Hyderabad, tried to seek
demographic
a dirty,
story.
but that's a different history. That's
But
a
there's a
different story, and we'll have
demographic
another
story.
debate. So I'm also a student of history with respect, but I want to bring in Ambassador Yash Sinha. Merit in the Prime Minister saying that had a strong line been taken on Pakistani raiders and army in 1947 itself, it would have deterred Pakistan from future terror attacks. For example, when he says, he argues that if we had taken POJK as Sardar Patel wanted, would history have been different, sir? You've studied Pakistan at length. You were JS and AS spy.
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you for having me on your show. At the outset, I would like to pay my respects to India's first Prime Minister, a freedom fighter and one of the founding fathers of our nation. However, he was human and he did make mistakes. And surely he made a mistake as far as Kashmir is concerned. But I don't want to go into too much of that. We know what happened when we went to the UN, expecting, I think very idealistically, expecting relief that the UN would ask, the Security Council would ask Pakistan to vacate its aggression. It didn't happen. But we don't want to go into that. All I want to do is point out one thing, that on the 8th of November 1947, the Indian Army liberated Baramulla. And on the 13th of November 1947, it entered Uri and subsequently liberated it. The then army commander of the then Delhi and East Punjab Command, which later on became the Western Command, was Lieutenant General Sir Dudley Russell. Now, he's one of the few British officers, and you're aware of British perfidy, both during the war and before independence, after independence, and during the first Indo-Pak War. But General Russell was an exception. He recommended that the Indian Army, after liberating Uri, destroy the bridges at Kohala and Domel on the Kishanganga, which marked the border between Pakistan, well, J&K and Pakistan, and would have actually, but I have served in Pakistan also, apart from being, be associated in the division for at various capacities. So can you imagine if Sir Dudley Russell's recommendations had been accepted and an advance to Muzaffarabad had taken place after destroying the bridges at Domel and Kohala, Muzaffarabad would have fallen. And at that time, Punch was being besieged, and rightly so, we had to relieve Punch because there were a large number of our compatriots who were besieged there. However, an advance to Muzaffarabad would have automatically relieved the siege of Punch because they would have fallen back to defend a far bigger prize, that is Muzaffarabad. But that's all history. It's all written. And how do I know this? Because there is this book which people have forgotten about. It's called Operation Rescue. It was written by my father in 1951. He got permission to publish it in 1977. I proofread that book. So page number 31 and 32 of this book, which is a must-read for all military libraries in the subcontinent, talks about this advance. He was very closely associated with those operations. Along with Field Marshal Manekshaw at that time, Lieutenant Colonel Manekshaw, he was responsible for dispatch of troops to relieve Srinagar on the 27th of October. He would be the eyes and ears because he was the staff officer of Sir Dudley Russell and later on of Major General K.M. Cariappa, now later Field Marshal. So he's written the first authoritative book on the whole operation. So we know what happened. So let's not go down that road. I think I certainly don't want to play politics here at all, but facts are facts and they must be recognized by everyone.
And you're absolutely right. And it's been a privilege, to have interacted with your father, to have learned some of these facts that he's also written about so extensively. General Sinha was also later governor of Assam and should have been the army chief of our country. But that's another story for another day. Mohan Kumar Mangalam, and if I could come back to that second point that Prime Minister raised, merit in the Prime Minister saying that if you study the Indus Waters Treaty of 1960, he says you'll be shocked. For 60 years, the gates were not opened. Reservoirs reduced to 2% or 3%, as the Prime Minister put it. It's a treaty that's benefited Pakistan. And as Omar Abdullah, Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, says, grave injustice to the people of J&K.
Gaurav, on the treaty really quickly, I haven't read it, so I can't comment much to the merits of it, except to say that if it has been extraordinarily unfair to India, there have been two BJP governments. This Prime Minister has been in power for 11 years before this. And we went to war in Kargil while the previous Prime Minister was in power, with this Mr. Vajpayee. At no point in time was this treaty put in abeyance. So clearly they did not think it was that damaging to us, or they would have done it all the way back then. Now, 2 points of historical importance I wanted to add to the earlier points made. One was the recently declassified letters by then Indian Army Chief General Francis Robert Roy Butcher, who actually warned of fatigue amongst Indian troops in Kashmir and told Nehru that an overall military decision was no longer possible. So this is something that has come to light in the recent past and is actually part of historical record. The other point I wanted to make was, and Sanjay alluded to it as such, was that Sardar Patelji was interested more in Junagadh and Hyderabad than he was in Kashmir, retaining Kashmir or keeping Kashmir away from Pakistan. In fact, in many historical accounts, including one written by Rajmohan Gandhi, he clearly states in there that his interest in Kashmir only grew after Junagadh ceded to Pakistan. And he began to see Kashmir as something that he could trade in exchange for Junagadh and Hyderabad on this side. Of course, after the raiders came in, it changed entirely. And I'm not disagreeing with the points that you made about Sardar Patelji, him wanting to continue with the offense. But there are several other contexts here that must be taken account of when you're trying to make a decision of this sort.
You've made a very pertinent point.
I'll make a very quick, just one last point, Gaurav.
Yes, please.
Internationalizing the situation. Yes, we all know what happened after we took it to the UN. Maybe the first Prime Minister was being more idealistic than he should have. But the decision to go to the UN was that of the entire first cabinet. which included people like Shama Prasad Mukherjee of the Hindu Mahasabha and, of course, Sardar Patel himself.
Though they remain very, staunchly opposed to it. They, take internationalizing Kashmir. But as you very rightly pointed out, it's in hindsight we've learned what a disaster that decision was. But Ajay Alok, the point that Mohan Kumar Mangala makes is very valid. Indus Waters Treaty, there have been BJP governments in the past. When the Kargil war happened and we lost 530 brave soldiers due to Pakistan's, nefarious designs and the deceit. Why wasn't it cancelled earlier? Why didn't the Narendra Modi government put it in abeyance earlier? We've suffered Pakistani state-sponsored terror even in the past.
Well, Indus Water Treaty was put in abeyance by Narendra Modi this time, after a lot of consideration that yes, enough is enough. The water is now more than the nose level. That's what you call a great leader who can take a hard decision. Of course, it was not taken by Vajpayee during Kargil war. Maybe because the politics of coalition compulsion. Could be. Anything is possible. But this time, that's what Narendra Modi has shown the mettle. That he is ready to take the hardest of hard decision if it comes to the country. That's what we are talking about here. That the country's interest was never primary. Why the matter was taken to UN? No answer about it. Why the Indian army was stopped? Whole POK was not taken. No answer to it. There are many things. Why accession was given to China? No answer to that. It's written in the parliament. It's in the parliamentary book record 1962, Jawaharlal Nehru after China war. He wrote that the Pakistan is a friendly country. Why? There is no answer to it. There are many whys which we keep on asking. Okay. But the Congress doesn't have any answer. And then they say that the fallback guy is Nehru. Nehru is actually the fallback. It's led to the India's fall. That is the truth which you fail to digest. If you have any answer, please tell me why did you let 93,000 soldiers with us? Why didn't you expand the chicken neck? What we are talking about? What are
we'll keep chicken's neck for another time. We'll keep chicken's neck for another time. And 1971 war, after this decisive military victory, why weren't some issues sorted out, and should they have been, could they have been? Are we, so idealistic that we forget what's the real situation like? But Ambassador Sinha, if I could come back to the point of the Indus Waters Treaty, grossly unfair to the people of India. Omar Abdullah has talked about it in the past. You've dealt with it closely on the technical aspect. It's benefiting Pakistan. That's been so unfair to India right from 1947.
Gaurav, the preamble of the treaty says that it be concluded in a spirit of goodwill and friendship. I can't see any goodwill or friendship that flowed from after the conclusion of the treaty. And I was involved intimately much later at the arbitration at the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague for the Kishanganga arbitration. We had the redoubtable Fali Nariman as our lead counsel. I was the co-agent for India. And this is about 2011, 2012, 2013. I realized immediately, and all of us realized, how Pakistan was playing obstructionist all the time, trying to prevent the run-of-river projects which we were permitted under the treaty. Mind you, Gaurav, the larger Indus basin, 37% of that basin lies in India and 47% in Pakistan. Yet we were so generous that we gave 80% of the waters to Pakistan and kept 20% for ourselves. And even where we had the right to construct run-of-the-river projects, Pakistan always created hurdles and obstructions. Not only did they, on Baglihar, on Salal, on Kishanganga, and on Kishanganga, it's actually quite amazing that having lost the first arbitration, again, they took India to arbitration. Of course, India refused to participate. And India has been calling for a review of the treaty. Repeatedly, Pakistan has been ignoring India's request. And I think it was a very good decision to keep this treaty in abeyance, because it was one of the most generous treaties concluded between any two countries in the world on water sharing. And we were more than responsible and more than generous as the upper riparian. But that's another debate. What I'm trying to say is that the Indus Water Treaty, things have changed. Even climatically, we've had people, glaciologists, etc., who've talked about how the lower Karakoram range, where the eastern rivers flow from, There, the glaciers have dried up much faster, while the upper Karakoram, where the western rivers flow from, have not been affected so much. So I think there is certainly a need to review this treaty and to renegotiate it if required. But obviously, all that could be done in a spirit of goodwill and friendship. You can't have Pakistan repeatedly subjecting us to dastardly terrorist attacks and expect that we turn the other cheek.
Absolutely. And that big question, I leave all our guests with it, because on my show, on this show, it's always India first, everyone together. This is war. At the time when you have a radical Islamist state sponsor of terror that's been bleeding our country for decades. So finally, we are waking up to it as one country, ensuring thus far and no further. To all my guests, many thanks for joining me. We'll track the story very, very closely. As the Prime Minister said, blood and water cannot flow together. The ball is now in Pakistan's court. If they want water more than their share, then they perhaps take action against Hafiz Saeed, Masood Azhar, and that entire military terror network in their country.